Today, we will try to show you how to go from this into this, which is a fully interactive cost management cockpit, basically, where you have full control over all of your costs across your cost centers for every owner, for every aspect of your business, not just cost controlling are your costs within your budget, but also how does this affect the end results of your company, right? Having an interactive and nice way to drill down into the details of your costs to really understand what is going on, and then moving on from this part into much more operational details, basically in the same solution. So going just from this account-based view into much more operational views that actually give you full insight and full control. So in order for you to take some action and then, of course, analyze the performance and see if those actions were successful. And in the end, hopefully, this will increase your company's EBITDA, net income, and other financial KPIs, which are, of course, very much dependent on the control of your expenses. I'm Andre, the founder at Zebra BI. I'm a Microsoft Most Valuable Professional Alumni member and an IBCS certified consultant. However, the mastermind behind this webinar is really our lead consultant, Thielen, who will join me a bit later on and will tell us much more, will show us all the aspects of a modern cost management solution. Three key aspects of cost management. Most of you are probably doing basically cost budget tracking, just cost budget reports, tracking whether your expenses, different types of costs, expenses are within the budget by some cost centers, cost owners, and so on. So just basic actual versus budget cost management. However, this is only one aspect of cost management, right? Typically, this is done in Excel, tracking the variance of actual versus budget in various aspects, but it's actually quite limited, right? Because you're typically doing this by cost type and your cost center, and you don't have actually much more granular view into the drivers for those costs and so on. And also at this point, in these types of reports, you actually don't have the link. How do those costs actually affect the end result, your financial KPIs and so on? How do they targets and so on? So of course, all the data around the cost needs to be integrated into your income statements and so on in many ways, right? Even if you do some what if analysis, simulations, forecasts, and so on, you need to make sure that you understand how changing certain cost values will affect the final results and so on. And then at the lowest level, of course, you have operational cost management. This is really the level where you can efficiently plan certain actions and do something, right? Because in the end, at this level, where you just have a summary of your costs even already booked under a certain account, it's already too late, right? So you need to have a solution that actually includes very granular operational reports and make sure that this is linked to your cost budget reports. And of course, where do those costs occur? This depends on your business. You have a lot of marketing costs, or for example, you want to track the costs of your marketing budgets and so on, right? If you're production heavy in manufacturing, of course, that this will be a lot about supplier management and tracking of the prices of your raw materials and so on. A lot of it will be managing labor costs and so on. And this all requires more operational granular cost management, right? And this is typically a problem today if it's really hard to do it in Excel. Either you have a lot of additional Excel files that you need to manually prepare and manage and so on, or you need to go into your operational systems like ERP systems and production systems and so on, right? But the message here is, this is the old way. Having separate Excel files that you somehow need to manually manually refresh, get the data from your systems for your actuals and maintain your plans and so on. This really is the old way. I would say the big picture of a common modern best practice solution would be really a unified system where you have all the costs in all the data for all those three levels in the same solution, fully automated, daily, monthly, and so on, fully integrated. So you have your budget, full budget there for all the levels. And of course, you can compare it to your actuals that are updated on a daily or monthly basis. And this is all a part of one interactive solution. So something like Power BI, hopefully, right, where you can just simply drill down, when you can move, your users can move their mouse here and understand, all right, what's behind some variance and so on. And they don't need to open 3 different Excel files and ask 10 people. It's all there. It's all integrated in one place. With that, what can you do? And let's start, just tell you a couple of things, all right, how you can leverage Excel and still move from those manual row level cell-based reports into a more modern solution that gets you closer to what I've described. And this would be something like this, for example. So this is now Excel, and you do have interactive visuals. You have your actual versus plan, actual versus budget here with the variances nicely presented. And if you have a big variance, you can drill down, right? So you can have this interactivity. You can sort the costs, maybe descending, right? Check the ones that broke your budget first and so on, or sort by another criteria like the relative variance and so on. But really with costs, the absolute variance is the king, I would say. And of course that, and this, all this data here, and so you have your actual versus budget, but you also have your top level. So you have your P&L here, your revenue COGS and so on, all integrated, all also in Excel. And you also could be fully automated, right? So you could do something like have some slicers here in Excel and then just switch to the next quarter or next month and so on, right? So what do you need? You need 2 things to achieve something like this, right? First, you need modern advanced visuals. So these are Zebra BI visuals, of course. So Zebra BI tables for Excel. This is also Zebra BI tables for Excel, so that you just give your users this out-of-the-box functionality to quickly sort, understand the data, then drill down, get to the details, then some cross-filtering and so on, understand the thing. So the first thing, definitely, I would say the visuals. And this is done because Zebra BI visuals also run in Excel. So you can simply add those visuals from Microsoft App Source. So you can do this in Excel. You can also do this in PowerPoint and of course in Power BI as well, but we are still in Excel right now. So this is the first part of the magic. The second part of the magic are simply pivot tables. All right, I'm sorry, but if you don't use pivot tables, you cannot say that you have a modern Excel, modern solution in Excel. This is actually what even Microsoft calls modern Excel, right? For sure, pivot tables are here the key, right? Why? Because if you want to have such an interactive system, right? And there's just no way around it because of the nature of the data structures around costs, right? You always have many hierarchies in your costs, right? You have your account groups and detailed GL accounts, and then you have your cost centers and so on, right? You may have like 5 levels only in your basically account dimension, right? The cost type dimension. So the only way to efficiently manage all those structures, hierarchies in Excel are pivot tables. So this is definitely the recipe. Try to put all your data into a pivot table, into pivot tables in Excel, including actuals and budgets, right? And then use Zebra BI visuals to just leverage this interactivity for the end users, right? And then this combination together will help you transform your reports into nice interactive reports where people will actually understand their reports, and they will function as a kind of a dashboard for different users. So if you already have your cost center owners assigned and so on, you can actually have people here, and so they can browse through their own costs and so on, right? Or you can just select everyone if you're the CFO and so on, right? You can control your month here, and you can fully automate this because you can link your pivot tables back to your operational systems or ERP systems or wherever your GL is, general ledger is, and also link this with additional financial reports like P&Ls and so on, as we saw in this example, where basically you have a short P&L, but also cost versus budget report on the same page. To basically close this part of the session, you will somehow, if you want to move from those static manually maintained reports, definitely you need to somehow link back to your original data source. This would typically be some sort of hopefully you can do this as a kind of a actual link to your database, to your original system. Otherwise, the alternative is basically exporting flat data from your system into Excel. Actually, we did here in this short demo, so that you have all the data here, your dates and your cost centers and GL accounts, and then all the levels of the grouping of your accounts. And yeah, it's basically it. Hopefully also you have some cost center owners somewhere. If you don't have them in the original system, you can just like append them in, from Excel, right? This is the beauty of Excel. It's very flexible, but also merge your actual data, right? So data that's your actual data that comes from a system with your budget, right? So you need to basically, and for that, if you want to merge this together, you need to just like transform your budget into the same format of a table, right? So that you can then basically add those rows to the same table, right? And you can have this not only budget but also different versions of your forecasts and so on, right? So this is really your task, I would say. Merge this data together, and then once you have this, you can build a nice pivot table, right? So a nice pivot table, basically, which is totally flexible, right? So you have your cost centers, you just add your dimensions here, and basically you will have a small cost cube with your fields, columns from your table here. So what am I looking at? Let's see, account group. All right, and this is already a dynamic pivot table, which you can refresh each month and so on. And now the step to get to the report is basically one click from pivot table to a nice report is just bringing in the Zebra BI visuals. So basically two visuals, Zebra BI tables for Office, Zebra BI charts. Mostly, I guess you will use Zebra BI tables in cost management. Boom, voila, that's it. So this is all you need, because everything else, the whole report with the design and everything, is really inside the Zebra BI tables visual, right? So really it now reads this data from the pivot table, and already you can do things like sort by your variance. The variance was automatically calculated and so on, right? So you don't need all of your detailed columns and cell-based formulas and so on. This is all out of the box in the visuals. Every user can expand and drill into the details here, and this is very, very flexible. Of course, in a pivot table, you can always add more details, like go from high-level groups down to the last detail, which is like a GL account, basically. And this then allows users to drill into the details and understand the data and so on. And then, of course, also hopefully comment on it, explain it, and present it. So to wrap this up, build pivot tables and use Zebra BI visuals, and you might get quite close to a modern system, especially if you then also add some slicers. You see here, this element here is actually a slicer. And how does this work? Basically, if you bring multiple pivot tables on the same page, you can just use each pivot table for each visual, right? So here we have actual versus budget for accounts and by cost center and accounts, right? So this is just Zebra BI table inserted from this pivot table. Then we have a monthly chart, right? Also with forecasts, right? You saw that I had forecasts in my data, and you can definitely use Zebra BI charts for this. So you just insert another pivot table, and this time the category, the rows will contain your month, and again, actual forecast plan, and then insert a Zebra BI chart visual, right? And it'll work. And then you just do the last step, which is you insert a slicer. So you go here under insert a slicer, and now Excel will just offer you to insert a slicer based on any field in that you have in your pivot table, right? And this can be anything. So for example, month. Now you have the slicer for your month, right? And then last thing that you can do, if you right click on the slicer, here you can actually control which pivot tables will this slicer control. All right. And you can select multiple pivot tables, which means that when a user will switch to the third month, March, all these 3 pivot tables that I have on my report will change at the same time. So this is exactly what we did with this slicer here. So as you see, we have one slicer for years, one slicer for quarters, could be also month, right? And just the thing is, so right click, report connections, and you will see in this demo, we have a lot of pivot tables, but you see it's actually 4 pivot tables. So this year switch here will just filter the year in all the 3 pivot tables that I have here on the left side, right? And then because the visuals are now linked back to those pivot tables, when you flip the switch to the next quarter, the slicer will filter out the data in all those pivot tables, and as a result, all the visuals will refresh. So the visuals refresh immediately, right? When the table is refreshed, and this basically allows you to build interactive dashboards in Excel. Let's move on to Power BI now, and because Power BI, of course, is the tool, real BI platform that allows you to do much more. And we have our lead consultant, Tilan, here to explain exactly how it's done.
Hello, everyone. As per Andrei's announcement, my name is Tilan. I'm a LEI BI consultant here in Zebra BI. So today, I'm going to actually walk you through some cost management activities that can be performed in a modern way in Power BI, but of course, with the help of Zebra BI custom visuals. So the cost management actually is a kind of an activity that's performed, I guess, should be performed regularly on a monthly basis as part of, I don't know, month-end closing activities, perhaps. And where to start, right? Where to start such a task is the common task actually performed by the controllers. And by the way, I was also a controller maybe 2 or 3 years ago, actually. And how I started here, first, you need to ensure the accuracy. So as a controller, financial controller, you need to ensure that the bookkeeping is correct, so that controlling your accountants. And to do that, we find the way how to actually utilize Zebra BI to build a report like this, which consists of Zebra BI charts. And why does this actually make sense to ensuring the accuracy? Because at the end of the day, you want to have the accurate inputs, accurate financial statements, which is actually then the base for your cost management or the analysis of the costs, right? So how would you then ensure what I was doing? And actually, Andrei was talking a lot about pivot tables. I was actually constructing a pivot table with all the general ledger account. No, this is just sample general ledger list. But what I was doing, I was preparing a kind of extensive pivot table into all the general ledger accounts, maybe even some cost centers and groups. And then I was trying to figure out where the variances come from. So the variances from actuals, and let me just maybe move actuals right here on the left-hand side. And I'm going to reposition so that we can maybe better discuss this one, like this one. I'm going to focus on the variances now. So these are my actuals, right? And what I'm interested actually here is to spot the wrong postings. I need to identify those that have major variances, bigger variances when compared to either previous month or a previous year, because that would mean, something irregular happened, or I don't know, something was posted wrongly. And once I spot that, I can then let know my accountants or even you as a controller have the authority to post something manually to adjust the bookkeeping, right? And by the way, one very useful thing here, which you should think about to make your work easier, is to incorporate comments within your model. And why would you do that in this case? I regularly came across the issue that I was doing that by every time I spotted some irregularity, a big difference, such in this case, I was struggling with what should I really do with this? Is this the proper GL account or is this expected behavior, stuff like that? And this is what comments can really come into play. You can set it up as a tooltip or as a side pane. I can show you that one. You just have to put a comment, but put it on. But let's switch it to this view as we had before. Just hover over the comment marker, which is this blue circle, and it will show you your mark that you did probably in the previous year or the previous month, and it will help you identify the wrong postings. For example, in this case, this is the general ledger account salaries, and I made my mark to myself, or maybe to even my successor. Maybe we have a new intern which needs some guidance, and I can help him with implementing comments within the dashboard, saying, look, this is actually inventory adjustment. This is the GL account that is actually based on the calculations you made with inventories. So you should check that the accounting really posted what you've calculated. And similarly stuck with that, you can also mark down those GL accounts that are obsolete, that are no longer in use, or anything similarly. Then you can also slice those data, right, with cards which have the functionality of slicers. You can slice through the table to see GL accounts per each cost center to ensure that the accounts are really correctly. That sometimes it happens that salaries are not allocated to the right cost center. Then this is quite a big challenge for the accounting to make it correct. But hey, someone needs to catch that and inform them so that the financial statements are really as they should be. And when you have your first financial statements, then is the time to understand data, and understand financial statements, so to actually find and then eventually share insights. Now, when it comes to costs, you may also come upon a situation where costs are analyzed in isolation, right? But that shouldn't really be the case, at least as a starting point, because one may say, yes, costs have increased against previous year, but how does this play against the broader picture? Yes, the costs may have increased, which is the red color, so a bad sign. But you also need to keep in mind that maybe the costs have increased. It's increased in production, but I should also know what is happening with revenue, my operating profit, and nonetheless also the operating margins. Because the increase in costs is not necessarily a bad sign if I increase my revenue by 3 times. And today you also need to consider this broader picture. And now, I remember Andrei already showed this kind of example earlier during his presentation, but I would like to point out here as a from the perspective of a controller, FP&A, or maybe even CFO who is looking at his month-to-date, and we can switch to month-to-date performance or a year-to-date, whatever. Just use the switcher. You have 2 dimensions which you can play around with. Here we have a cost center overview with cost centers presented, previous year actuals, of course, automatically calculated and formatted variances for you. But I can dig deeper into it to provide the answer for my variances. Now the production as a cost center is above previous year, right? And I can immediately spot the raw materials are actually the ones who are contributing that variances. And luckily enough, someone was faster than me and already provided behind the data. So linking the business activity, so what we did in history or in the past, that's translated in our financial statements. And he nicely put it in a comment right here. So we can, someone who reads it already knows what happened in the past and how to then this projects in the future. But we still have inventory adjustments in here. So what can we do here now? And that's another dimension. Yes, you could build several layers of hierarchies to dig even deeper into that one. But I really like these tooltips. Tooltips are a nice way how you can add additional dimension, which could explain your variance. So variance in this case, 6 million on inventory adjustments. We can see immediately that comes from Europe. Now, equipped with this insight, I can go to the annotation, which is in the top right corner. I can choose a comment marker or grab a comment marker, place it on the variance, and say, this is obviously, this should be structured better, but let me just simplify it. This is from Europe. Ideally, a valuable player in your company, you should already try to provide some value added in the term of what should we do about it, mitigate this in the future. So about my spelling, what should we do about it to mitigate this cost, right? You should already, this is also the place where you can propose your actions, propose your recommendations, which should be taken into account. That's maybe in the interest of time, I'm gonna try to provide you a different angles of how to look at costs. Obviously, we're not going to be able to look at them at all, but don't worry, you will receive also the file which you can explore on your own after the webinar. Now, I mentioned that the profitability is one important aspect when you come to analyzing costs, because essentially you have your top line, you have revenue. This is, by the way, a table which shows a condensed P&L statement. You have a revenue down to the gross profit, and then you have OPEX or operating expenses, which then is bottom line, the operating profit. So taking away from your revenue and the gross profit, then is OPEX, coming down to the operating profit. And why is this important? It's always important to know, to kind of support people when they read your dashboards, when they read your reports, to onboard them how particular KPI, which may not be straightforward for everyone, how they are built up. Now, what I notice here, yes, we do have operating margin, but we don't have a gross profit. With Zebra BI, luckily enough, it's a piece of cake. It's one of my favorite tricks you can do with Zebra BI. You can just right-click on a table, click Add Formula. You don't need to write text. If you're not a BI expert or the Power BI expert, you can write formulas. As you're in the dashboard, you can write formulas instantly. Let me just divide this. By revenue. Say I want this in percentages, and I'm going to also format it italic so that we differentiate from the absolute values. And just like that, I have my gross operating margin within my dashboard and no need to intervene anything with my model, right? And as a next step, I would like to then see the trends of those margins, so the operating and the gross margin. I use Zebra BI charts because they work awesome for the time series. And this way I can immediately spot, the Q2 of 2023 was really, the margin was at its lowest. So both gross margin and the operating margin. I highlighted, to keep your focus. And this is, by the way, also the way how you can keep the focus of your audience, of your report viewers, so that they know where to focus, where the story behind the data lies. And what I would like to do here is to use this chart to explore why was my margin lower now. So how do I do that? This is not a kind of regular combo chart. It's actually a small multiple combo chart. Maybe if I demonstrate, if I select all of the financial KPIs, you will see that this is actually a small multiple. Now, going back, I can then see the monthly development of each of those KPIs compared to the operating margin, and this one is lowest. So how do I know now what happened with this one? Well, let's maybe first analyze the components down to the gross profit. So this will be my revenue and COGS, right? I will select both of them and immediately get the picture. My revenues are below the plan, but my costs are actually, also below the plan. So kind of offsetting my gap within the profit. So my gross profit should actually be somewhere, still below the plan because COGS were not enough to offset the revenue. So now I know that this is actually the problem. But then the missing piece is also the OPEX. I can select OPEX, see OPEX is actually a plan. So if I now combine the gross profit and OPEX, I see that OPEX was actually on the budget, on the plan, but the gap is coming from the gross profit. Now, equipped with this, I know the operating profit obviously is below the plan now, but equipped with this insight, which was just 2-3 clicks away, I can reach out to my sales manager, or even better, I can post my report in a Power BI service, assign edit rights to this, let's call it sales manager, who has the insight for us, and then he can actually go and add the annotation within the chart and say, this was actually a postponed deal. We shouldn't worry about it. It will happen in the next couple of months. And this will now be saved in your visual. And the next, when you move to September or any other month, this will be saved within your visual. Then obviously we also have other views where we can take on the costs from month to date to year to date, how one translates into another one. And also the cost structure analysis that Andrei already mentioned. But more importantly, I mentioned two things. One is to focus on variances, and another one is also to focus on trends. Now, with chart like that, it's a Zebra BI chart. It's a small multiple. It's actually a representation of my total OPEX broken down by account groups. And also, we have a monthly development shown real nicely. Now, if for some reason I want to investigate into the, let's say, July, um, I know now, just looking by this, the production costs are my main cost drivers. And the variance in July was actually we're above plan. And I can immediately see, look, my main drivers, production costs, it is above plan, but there are also travel expenses that are above plan. And since this happened in July and we are now in September, I was good enough and put it down in the comments. So now we really know what happened in July, so that we can move forward from that part. Then additionally, you can also do the same analysis on the cost center level or any other level, just depending how you set up your, depending on your data set and the data model. But when you are equipped with this one, right, we said you need to find the insights, prepare them so that they are digestible to the business, to the managers. So that is actually one of the crucial parts of the reporting. At least that's how I see it. And this is where actually Zebra BI is not just for exploring data, but it's actually to transferring those insights to the people who are decision makers, and those insights then need to be really actionable. And if we switch now to this, let's say, more of a cost center reports, which would be something that each cost center owner, so the responsible for each cost center, looks at. Here the key point is it's quite similar to the top to the first page that we looked at, so the top level overview. But what its focus here should be, these are often not financial people. They don't really deal with finance every day. So how do we make finance stuff, which and then the costs are right and expenses, how do we make them digestible to non-finance people? Well, definitely one thing is to include visuals within your tables. Now, yes, I've shown you like this is the case with a simple table. This might make sense to some people, and by the way, you already have variances calculated. But to some people, this might already make sense. But including visuals, so such as plus minus chart for absolute and pin charts for the relative variances, this will bring to our guy Ethan, who is actually, by the way, the manager of production and logistics, will give him a clear insight. My variance is actually the biggest in production because I need to understand what's going on with my production, and I need to mark this down. Whether Ethan is the one providing inputs or you have a separate business analyst, they both can add insights real quickly with comments. To equip really our reports with actionable insights. And then at the end of the day, as our organization gets bigger, you can prepare cards like this, which will show which country is really the most important for our cost owner, and then he can actually slice up his own table. He can use this as a self-service action material to investigate, and not only maybe once a month. He can do this on a monthly basis or whatever basis, depending on the industry. But essentially, each cost center has an option to do that and to really understand the consequences of actions his team is taking. Now, this is something it's still kind of a top level as a cost center report, but as Andrei also already mentioned, I'm quoting Andrei a lot today, I guess. It comes down at the end of the day. It comes down also to the operational stuff. So the people who have hands-on, who are actually incurring the cost, who are actually reaching out to suppliers and saying this is something we will spend on and not. And maybe this is one quite interesting case. And this is actually the marketing events budget tracking. And what this really means is we have a list of budget events or maybe even campaigns, depends how each business calls it. But we have an overview of spending in 2024. We have actuals, we have plan, and then of course we also have variance against plan to see where we spend it more than planned and where we spend it less. And again, using comments here, we do think in Zebra that comments should be a part of more or less every good report. You can again here they shouldn't take a space within the report. You can again use them only as a tooltip, so that to to keep this track and traceability of what spending. Something went over the budget, but was this really approved? Was this a strategic decision? Well, this is something you can mark here. And in some cases, you will also have cases, for example, like this one, where you will have a plan for Q1, but it didn't realize, right? I don't know. There was a time of COVID when no event was actually no event happened, right? And a lot of budget relocation happened, and this is again something where comment can help you when you reallocate something to the next quarter, but then after 2 or 3 months, when you're dealing with a lot of data, you might forget it. But here, comments are something that could be again serving as a note or to explain why something was over the budget or not. Yeah, and one thing interesting enough is again expanding and collecting the table to find for more details. So what actually was spent on this event? Was it airfares? Was it accommodation? Was it meals and entertainment? And with groups in the tables, you can even go on a higher level, look on the yearly level, maybe even include some previous year to see which events were actually attended, where we spend money. Do we need to spend somewhere more? Do we want to spend more and stuff like that? And then decide upon that. See how you can reallocate your budget, how you can spend your budget, and more importantly, what generally manager in marketing are interested in is how much budget do they really have until the end of the year. And this is a report where you can which can give actually them an instant insight into what have they spent and what can they still spend until the end of the year. Then another case is whether you're a CFO, FP&A, controller, or a CNO, you need to know who your vendors are, right? And a report like this, again, simple with cards and on one table, can give you a quick and insightful yet actionable insight into how you are operating with your suppliers or vendors. Um, how are the business terms changing? Are they changing? Should they change? Because in this case, for example, I see that my utilities are 2.4 million above plan. This is not so good, right? Now I can investigate into those and see, these are my vendors within the utilities. These are the things that they are charging me for, and now I can analyze and see. I need to reach out to the person who are actually in contact with those suppliers to see, why has this happened, or like is this a general increase in prices, or is someone exploiting us, or so forth. I could perhaps even include additional column, which would be, I don't know, comparison to previous month or something like that, which would give you additional insight. Is this really something that we expected? And at the end of the day, how do we plan to mitigate or how to expand? In this case, we're planning to expand these efforts to further decrease expenses or exploring new options, how to source energy or stuff like that. But yes, to start exploring new options, you first need to understand what's going on with your business. And when you successfully presented your insights to the decision makers, to the action takers, then you can combine your forces and start preparing some forecast, which as you come to closer to the end of the year will get even more and more important, right? Because you more or less you would want to know how the next month is going to be and how the end of the year your performance is going to end up. Well, regularly your bonuses or your business targets are quite something really important to investors and also to your management. So this is something that's quite often discussed within those groups. So once you prepare forecasts, you would typically, good practice for sure is to have not just one scenario, but combine 2 or maybe 3 scenarios. I like to call it, one should be realistic, and another one should be a bit more, let's say, pessimistic, where we plan to spend more than we actually planned, and another one which will be kind of a more, let's say we stay on the safe side. We will cut everything that we can just to reach the targeted profitability, right? And again, a nice chart can give you an overview what are actuals contributing to your let's say estimate, and then what forecasts are what the forecasts are actually going to be until the end of the year. Again, here are the comments, here the place for comments, and it's very, very important that you keep comments at least to justify your assumptions, to tell the people what is expected and how do we actually reach those results. And as a cherry on cake, yes, you may argue, okay, but now I see my actuals month by month. I see my forecast month by month for the rest of the year, but it's zero BI. You're promoting everything is seen instantly. Well, to get to the full year estimate, it's not that hard. One trick is go to the visual chart setting, and once you have selected the chart, just click on grand total, and this is actually, well, if top n was my favorite, then this is more favorite. This is, I guess, the first one that is the most favorite to me is this grand total, because just by unticking the grand total, it will sum up your actuals to 600 million. Then for the rest of the year, which sums up to 447 million, this will be now my full year estimate. Now, I didn't calculate everything. Libre Visual actually added up my actuals plus forecast to come up with a full year estimation, and it already calculated me the variance against plan, which is by the end of the day the most important thing. We want to know how we will end up if based on the actuals that happened and provided forecasts. We want to know what our full year estimation is going to be, how we're going to end up. As mentioned, there are also other hidden gems in here. I'm going to invite you to check them out after you receive the materials. But for now, I'm going to invite Andre back to the stage and give his word back.
Thank you so much, Tilan, for this deep dive and for sharing all of your experience as a ex-controller and consultant in a Big Four company. I would just add maybe two quick tips on what Tilan said. Two things that you can further deploy when you put this whole reporting system into production. Number one, the bookmarks. So Power BI has a concept of bookmarks, which is great for personalizing the dashboards, right? Because every user can basically select their own preferred view of the data. So for example, this cost center owner, Ethan, right, can just select his name and then save this as a bookmark. And you have several levels of bookmarks, personal bookmarks and so on in Power BI. So do explore this and do make sure that your end users can use the bookmarks, because it's a quick shortcut for personalizing their own views. So next time when they open Power BI, they will already see exactly the data that is relevant for them. And tip number two, use row level security, RLS, to restrict data, for certain people. If this is needed, if you have an open culture, that's great. I think that's even better. But many times this is required to make sure that only certain groups of people or certain individuals may see certain rows in your data, really rows, right? So you can restrict this, and the so-called row level security in Power BI is exactly the mechanism that you should employ for this. The only downside of using RLS is it may slow down the performance of your reports. It's been known as a as a performance killer, so be careful how you implement this. And if your reports become slow, then you might have an issue because of the RLS. But it's a great mechanism to make sure that people will see only the data that is really relevant for them, and they will not have the access to any other unauthorized data for them. All right. In the end, once you set this up, either in Excel, either in Power BI, how do you now present this to your end users, right? You can still use, of course, PowerPoint for presentations, quick, meeting presentations and so on. And maybe just two quick tips here. First of all, what I'm showing right now is a report done actually inside PowerPoint, all right? So what we are seeing right now here are actually visuals, Zebra BI visuals that run inside PowerPoint. Okay, so they're fully interactive. You can expand, collapse rows. You have the, you have the comment comments with the comment box and all that. But the advantage of setting up the reports directly in Power BI is just better flexibility. So you can do things like, put another visual at the bottom or somewhere, to the right side, and you can just use some markup design elements. So, you can just go out of this strict dashboarding, typical dashboarding design layouts, right? And then, of course, add messages and so on. However, you can make sure that this data that you have for your visuals, of course, you can like copy and paste this from Excel and so on, do it manually, month after month, but you do not want to do this. So that's why the Zebra BI visuals for PowerPoint support linking data back to your Excel files, right? So with this, you can, okay, now I would have to sign in and so on, but then I can actually link this visual back to my source data, which I have prepared in Excel. So this is one tip. The second tip would be reuse your beautiful existing Power BI report pages and dashboard pages in PowerPoint. Okay, so now this is my next slide in PowerPoint, but I'm actually showing the exact same picture that Thielen has presented, right? So now it's simply running within my PowerPoint, okay, and it's a full PowerPoint page embedded in full Power BI page embedded in PowerPoint. And it's very simple to set this up. You open your Power BI report and you just export to PowerPoint, and then you will see you have this option to embed this slide. You simply just click there, and it will just open a new PowerPoint presentation, and you'll get this slide, and then you just include this into your presentation. And now this is basically it feels like it's the whole Power BI is just running inside your PowerPoint. So you see my report page tooltips now are here. I have some commentary here, so I can click and expand to see those comments, and this will also drill down into the next level of my accounts. And so on. I can do the filtering, I can change views as a user and so on. And, once it's done, you just go to the next slide. And this is, again, reused slide that Thielen has prepared and so on. And you can just reuse this in a meeting for a presentation, for, board meetings, other types of management meetings. And if people have certain questions or something, you can use many different ways how to do it. You can actually write commentary directly in a meeting. You can add certain comments in addition to what you already have. You can just sort certain things and then open something and so on, right? So this is then also to bring everything together in a PowerPoint presentation. And the important part here, however you do it, either you reuse your Power BI reports, or you do it within Excel, within PowerPoint with the Zebra BI visuals. Everything is designed in a consistent way. Okay, so here you cannot really distinguish between the visuals done in Power BI or in PowerPoint, right? It's the same visual language. The same color always means the same thing, and so on, right? I just saw a question in one of the questions in the chat regarding the design and the colors. Of course, you can change your colors. There's a simple way of changing colors in Zebra BI Visual. So you can align this with your corporate color. You can maybe replace the green color with like a bluish color. That's actually better for people with color deficiencies and